Welcome back, everyone, to Improving's Tomorrow Technology Today series. I hope you've been enjoying what we've had for you so far. Today, we're having our second to last talk in our TTT lineup, and we're thrilled to have such an incredible lineup of speakers sharing their insights. If you haven't had a chance to catch the previous TTT sessions, I encourage you to visit our improving.com/thoughts/webinars website. There you'll find links to recordings of all the talks, covering everything from data and platform modernization to the role improving can play in transforming your digital footprint. This week is all about AI. It's been an incredible series of forward-looking content. Now, I'm excited to introduce our next speaker, my friend Kevin Jourdain. Kevin is a former school teacher who has spent the last 12 years with the Improving team here in Atlanta. As the co-leader of our AI practice, Kevin has seen firsthand how generative AI is transforming enterprise operations. In this keynote, Building the Enterprise of Tomorrow, Productivity Gains Through Generative AI Training, Kevin will show us how tools like MS Copilot, Google Gemini, and Amazon Q can boost productivity and revolutionize digital solution building. From writing code to generating docs and debugging, these AI assistants unlock your team's full potential. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Kevin will also address the challenges enterprises face when integrating these cutting-edge technologies. Plus, he'll give us a glimpse at the emerging platforms like Cursor and GitHub Copilot that are shaping the future of AI-driven development. Whether you're just starting your AI journey or looking to expand your capabilities, this is a talk you won't want to miss. Remember to use the Q&A button in the Zoom interface to submit your questions throughout the session, and I'll pass those along to Kevin during the Q&A times. Please join me now in welcoming Kevin Jourdain to the stage. Get ready to have your mind blown by the power of generative AI.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. This is exciting to speak about generative AI. Today, we're focusing on building the enterprise of tomorrow, productivity gains through Gen AI training. And as Daniel mentioned, there are ups and there are challenges that are facing ahead as the technology is maturing. Before we get into it, a little bit more about myself. I'm a husband and a father of 3. I love artificial intelligence, data, and analytics. I love and enjoy thoroughly watching just about any sports. Put me on the sideline and ask me to cheer for a team. I'll be your guy. But more particularly, I focus on soccer, rugby, and football. I was born and raised in France, so it took me a while to really get acclimated to football and the culture behind it, but I finally got around to it. And below is my LinkedIn profile. Feel free to scan it and let's network. So generative AI evidently have been an incredible disruptor, and we're already seeing some of the outcomes for companies that have been leaning in. And what I would like to start with is 2 companies that leaned in very heavily and published their outcomes. Starting with Klarna. Klarna is commonly referred as Klarna, a Swedish fintech company that provides online services. They're also known for handling large amounts of calls in their call centers. So Sebastian, I'm going to skip his last name at the risk of butchering his pronunciation, is the CEO and co-founder of Klarna, recently said something that I thought is worth noting. We push everyone to test, and explore. As Klarna continues to discover applications for OpenAI's tech, there is a potential to take the business to a new height. We're aimed at achieving a new level of employee empowerment, enhancing both our team's performance and the customer's experience. What does this mean in terms of numbers? Here's a few KPIs that you can easily find in recent um, publications, probably as of this year. 2.3 million conversations handled, 700 full-time agent replaced. And what they've done in order to get to those results is that they built this AI assistant, and the outcome was so great that they felt like they could um, diminish their workforce. And we'll get to the challenges and how we can face adversity and how we perceive AI as to how big the disruption is going to be. But from the company standpoint, is 25% decrease in repeat inquiries, an average of resolved issue in 2 minutes, down from 11. It's 23 markets available, knowing that it can speak in 35 languages. And ultimately, the dollar amount, 40 million in profit improvement. So these KPIs speaks for themselves as to what are the outcomes of a company that had leaned very heavily into generative AI, more particularly OpenAI's technology, and got significant results out of it. Another company is this little company based out of Washington State. I don't know if you heard, called Amazon. Their AI adoption has also been significant. Andy Jassy has came out publicly recently and said it's been a game changer for us. 260 million in cost saving achieved. 4,500 developer years saved. 79% of AI generated code reviews that went untouched, meaning that it was able to generate such good code that they were able to push it out to the next level. And then finally, a reduction of 50 developer days to just down to a few hours when it comes to Java upgrade. Then again, these are also metrics that are just speaks for themselves for a company that just leaned in very hard into generative AI adoption. In this case, they have adopted primarily Amazon Q developer, who played a significant role similar to the GitHub, well-known GitHub Copilot from Microsoft, and others that we'll be speaking about later on in this conversation. And those are the kinds of savings they're able to make. So now what? What are you telling us, Kevin? Is this means that Skynet is around the corner? No, you've heard it all. Skynet is nowhere near uh, it's going to happen, um, nor that it actually is going to do everything for you. The reason why these companies were able to make significant savings, sometimes at the expense of humans working in those call centers, for example, is because they kept the human in the loop. They kept the human in the loop. And for the next slide, I want you guys to keep that in mind. All right. And so this means that there are no successes with these technologies and even how they're evolving. That if the human was outside of the realm of this solution, that they would have been able to get these kinds of metrics. There's no way. The technology is not mature enough, and it needs some babysitting. So now what? How do we get that success? And before I talk about some foundation things, I want you to be thinking about complexity and difficulty. If you take two instruments, the piano on one hand and the violin on the other, I would love for you guys to openly shout out the instrument that you think can play more notes or more pitches. So I'll give it the next 30 seconds for you guys to answer, and then Daniel will kind of sum it up for us.
So the chat is now open for people to type into.
What are you seeing, Daniel?
Overwhelming majority for the violin.
It sounds right, and it is right. The piano has fixed pitch instruments. It has 88 keys in a regular size piano versus the violin only have 4 strings. Yet, because it is fretless, you can still create pitches that are infinitely possible. Whether there are note or not, it's for you to judge. But the amount of pitches that you can generate is by far greater than the piano. And so if you think about where the AI can actually play a role, I think that the AI, the way the technology is moving, is probably can handle piano a whole lot better than playing violin. In fact, I don't think that there's any robots, correct me if I'm wrong, that can play Vivaldi Four Seasons in a violin as good as a human can, because it is so complex because of the quarter notes that you can play on the violin is felt, is understood. It's something that is in our DNA. Versus the piano is mechanical. It's I press a note, therefore I get an outcome. And so I went to a generative AI conference that we sponsored recently here in Atlanta, and our very own Devlin Lies, our CCO, said something very profound. Is that when you think about trying to engage and adopt Gen AI in your mind for your organization, think about that AI can handle the complexity while humans focus on the difficulty. And to me, that is extremely profound because it just helps set where our focus should be. If you have a lot of repetitive process, however complex, then chances are that you can probably be thinking about building an AI solution, a generative AI solution that can handle that complexity, right? But it is important and integral to keep the human in the loop as we think more abstract form and on the more challenging piece ahead of time. So this is where we should be lying is let's be focusing more on playing the violin rather than um, understanding and perhaps repeat the complexity of piano. And of course, this is a metaphor. I'm not saying don't play piano ever again. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that in terms of what the generative AI can play a role and help you automate things in a way that you can gain some return on investment is on repeated process that are well identified and as easy as press of a note. Okay. It's easier said than done, but it's just kind of the mindset of which we can be. Hopes that helps. So then, as far as the adoption framework, I'll offer you 6 different steps. You probably have seen many adoption frameworks across any technology. And in this case, it's not a whole lot different than what you've seen in the past. But what I want to offer in the next 20 to 30 minutes is a view of how we took these steps, we improving, and apply them that impacted us. And at the end, we'll kind of get to see how this adoption generated some significant outcome, right? So we don't have an outlook on how Amazon and Klarna actually did it, but I would like to offer you is how improving has done it and the outcomes that it caused. Number 1, discovery. Number 2, strategy. Build your roadmap. Create policies. Be thinking about a pilot period to allow for the assimilation of the technology. And last but not least, training. We've trained the trainer and you're pushing out for the rest of the organization. So let's dive in each of these steps and then see how the outcome impacted improving. Discovery. Going back to what Sebastian was saying, the CEO from Klarna earlier, test, test, test. It's a new tool. It's a new set of tools every single week. It's like Christmas. There's something new that comes up. Oh, look at that. There's a new model. Oh, there's a new low code, no code application that you can use. There is tons of new tools coming out on a week to week basis. OpenAI have released recently the first sets of reasoner models, this ability to express chain of thoughts, generate chain of thoughts, and generate an outcome that was never done before, right? And so, in order to simulate that kind of power, um, with great power comes with great responsibility, right? Right? Hint, hint, Spider-Man. But it really is. That means that we really have to try it out, and then to see what it can do and how it can be assimilated in our organization. And so I hinted on it earlier is you have to identify the new tools, right, and assess them, right? Do the audits of these tools, right? Identify your processes. See if there are processes that can be automated. Collaborate with your teams and identify where the pain points are. Are you living in Excel hell and you're trying to navigate this exchange of information, but until then there's only a human that was able to do it? Maybe it's time for you to be thinking about how generative AI can actually help. Can Copilot help? Can a generative AI based solution help? Right? And so by identifying these processes where you see a lot of repetitive and time consuming tasks, then try to lean in and see if generative AI can actually make a difference. Knowledge management evaluation. I'm going to touch on it in a few slides. How this has impacted um, our organization, and what this means is we all aware of Google and Alta Vista or Yahoo of the world back in the 90s and how popular they became. And these were all key search based. And of course, Google has evolved to be what they are today and increase the search capability using large amount of AI and ML algorithms. So it's not just keyword, but it's also sets of algorithms that are able to kind of sort of guess what you're going to say, but never to a point of where you could use plain language, natural language, and trying to get what you're looking for within the documents if those keywords were not exactly inside those documents, right? And so knowledge management solutions are very helpful where you can now tap into this thus far untapped sets of data, documents, PDFs, Excel spreadsheets that have grown over time in your OneDrive, in your Google Drive, you name it, in SharePoint. And you could only be limited to keyword-based search. Now you can actually think about a way to retrieve information because it ties certain resemblance of words together, and it gives you a much better search outcome. And so companies like Perplexity have grown tremendously over the year because this is what they provided. It's this large search engine that is retrieving information that is surrounding the prompt as opposed to just be specific about the words that you're providing inside Google. So talking about Perplexity, what tools has improving played with? Perplexity is one of them. If you haven't seen or played with it, highly recommend Perplexity.ai. Azure OpenAI, of course, cloud-based inference service. Cursor, we will be talking about this there shortly. Amazon Q developer, we already mentioned it. Claude, fantastic chatbot interface that rivals OpenAI's. Google Gemini is along the same realm. DALL-E for image generation, along with Midjourney. Grok, I have a particular affiliation for these guys, as they've built a chip that makes their inference engine so fast. Um, and Otter AI or Microsoft Copilot that are able to take your notes and transcribe and come up with next steps. We've played also with DeepGram or 11 Labs that are speech generations, where you can essentially provide text and it's going to either use your trained voice or use a pre-trained voice and announce what you've written. HeyGen, Notion is a big one. And realized I have Perplexity twice here. And then last but not least, Amazon Bedrock, which is the Amazon answer in an AWS space for Azure OpenAI. So all of these tools is what we have played with and really dug deeper and deeper into it. So then what's the next step? We've played with those tools. We've identified some processes, but it's now time to write our strategic vision, right? So develop a vision and set of objectives for integrating generative AI technologies to boost personal productivity. In our space, we are a service company and we build robust digital solutions. And the primary currency is people in their ability to solve hard problems. And so what tools can we provide to our improvers that are going to make a significant boost? So our vision starting to become clear, that we start identifying areas in which we wanted to lean into. And I'll go over that in the next slide. As far as use case is concerned, what is the use case? Kind of going back to the set of processes that you want to be thinking about and be discovering. And so let's make sure that this align with the people that are in the trenches and dealing with those long and extraneous processes. And then verify with your stakeholders whether they think that there's going to be an impact. Luckily for me, I have these guys I get to work with. Devlin, our CCO, Michael, Scott, and Michael are technical directors out of various enterprises. And I have the chance to meet on a week-to-week basis to talk about how generative AI and AI is impacting and improving. But about sometimes last year, we met and we wanted to really create something that was proprietary to improving and identify areas in which we were experiencing the most pain. So in an initial call, we identify 4 different categories, whether we're going to help sales, we're going to help our agile training, whether we're going to help our marketing team, or whether we're going to help overall delivery. And what became evident at the time is that we quickly identify processes that we're experiencing in the sales department. And the reason being is because Improving has an enterprise model, and to kind of share a little bit of some of the pain that we have to go through is knowing what solutions have been made across other companies, other enterprises can be challenging, because it's reach out to somebody, reach out to so-and-so, and then you try and want to find out who was a solutions architect. Maybe you have some deep dive conversations about whatever was built in the past. And that becomes challenging because we have to respect their current time. But in the meantime, we're also pressed into trying to, on the sales side, trying to close a deal. So then at that point, it became evident that maybe we could come up with building a solution. And I'll touch on that in a minute. So after you've set your vision, after you've identified your the process that you want to address, let's build a roadmap. Let's understanding what people are going to be involved. Let's pilot an implementation, evaluate pilot results, and then try to plan for an organization wide rollout, right? Let's be thinking about the training and how it's going to impact. And then finally, let's communicate the benefits and changes to all employees. So what we did is a couple of things. Again, the focus was sales. And so one of the solutions that we built was our Improving Echo, which is a knowledge management solution. And essentially, as some of these solutions are now becoming more and more commoditized, this was an immediate need for us. We needed to have a way to get a tool in the hands of our sales so that they can ask questions around all of the content of case studies that we have that have been centralized into one place. And so they can ask questions without necessarily without having to wait for someone else on the other side to be available, because that chatbot was ready to help and answer a majority of the questions that our sales team have and immediately reduce the amount of time and wait we had to wait for someone else to be available. So that was important for us to build this. The other areas in which we wanted to focus on, again, these two side are focusing on sales, is executive AI workshop led by Devlin, and we've ran a lot of them since the kickoff and kind of the birth of our AI practice, and probably over 100 now. And the goal was to go and travel around North America and provide this sense of training to executives that all they hear about is AI, but not necessarily knowing how to engage fully with it. And so we put this workshop in place and had a tremendous amount of success with it. In fact, I was just chatting with Devlin last night. He just came back from Boston for another executive workshops that he ran up there. And the other one is probably a level below that are targeted for IT leadership and to help the IT leaders be able to answer some of the questions and expectations that executives might impose on them. So these first three bullet points are definitely sales heavy focus. This last one, and I'll touch on it when I talk about the training session, was almost a organic growth based on the success that we were having of these three bullet points. So we have focus on sales, but then we realized that we also needed a way to train our team. And while this doesn't directly impact sales, it certainly was part of a way to train our improvers in getting first hands on generative AI technologies. Policy development. While this can be extraneous, tedious, long, absolutely needed to put them in place. Focus on acceptable use policy. Make sure that your data privacy and security is maintained, and of course, ethical guidelines. Right? I don't think there's anything new here that you probably haven't heard before, but it's a good reminder. For ourselves, we focus on three main tools, and while others will come in our policies, the first one is around Microsoft Copilot that we've rolled out. The second is around the code generation that I mentioned earlier with Cursor and GitHub Copilot. Evidently, we build solutions, hard, complex digital solutions, and if we have a tool to accelerate this, then it only makes sense. So we built policies around it so that it respects our clients' expectations and ours. Pilot program. Um, well, it's been time. So once we built improving Echo, it was time for us to kind of start thinking about what we're going to do about the rollout. Okay. And so in this case, it was a solution that was made available. In your case, what does this mean for you? So what do you want to run as a pilot? Well, maybe you want to be thinking about rolling out ChatGPT Enterprise or Microsoft Copilot or Amazon Q Business, right? And or Google Gemini. So after you've done all of your experimentation, after you've created your vision as to how generative AI is going to impact your business, you've built your roadmap, you've set your policies. It's time for finalizing, what you're going to go with, and this to accept, go with one tool, which all more or less do about the same thing, and roll with it. And whether this is for content generation, for code generation, for whatever that may be, these are examples of tools that can increase office productivity. If you want a knowledge management tool, Glean, Amazon Q, Microsoft Copilot, or other solutions, whether you want to help your marketing team and go full on with HeyGen or other types of video creating video editors, whatever that may be, it's time to kind of get that lined up. You then identify your pilot group, and these are the ones that are essentially going to be saying, I raise my hand. I hear this Gen AI thing is kind of a big deal, and I really want to get a hold of it. And so if you don't know where to draw the line, I will say maybe for easy measures is 10%. 10% is probably where you want to draw the line of your pilot group. Beyond that, starts becoming a little bit manageable when it comes down to the feedback collection. Um, then pilot execution. You've got your group; they're ready to go. You have your tool in place, and then let them use it. Let them use it as part of their day to day, right? And so maybe it's evaluating the speed at which they're building content and pushing blog posts out. Maybe it's about the evaluation of code generation, right? So whatever that may be, try to be thinking about how you're going to measure it, and then let the pilot be the first failures that you're going to have. Collect the feedback, and then finally evaluate and scale, right? And so once you've done that first pilot, you're ready to go and be thinking about the next step, which is the company rollout. Is go from your alpha beta phase to full on general availability, right? So as you can imagine, I mentioned those tools before. We had a pilot for Microsoft Copilot. We had a pilot. We have a pilot for Cursor and GitHub Copilot. And as far as improving is concerned, the plan, while we roll this out to a greater part of the organization, we're actively discussing about rolling this out to a good portion of the company as well. Last but not least, training and education. So the pilot group that you had is hopefully going to become your trainer. They're going to be your biggest advocate. They already raised their hands to be using this generative AI tool. So might as well just be asking them, hey, maybe you want to be a trainer one day and help rolling this out. So you can be thinking about an organization-wide training, ongoing education, and then last but not least, support resources. Any sorts of user guides and FAQs, et cetera, et cetera. And for us, I hinted on it earlier, we had a AI hackathons for training purposes that was hands-on training. And so we had fun with it. We met in various cities. We had one in Atlanta, one in Dallas, one in Vegas. Thank you, Tim Rayburn, for providing amazing barbecue. And we get to build a solution in a rack system, right? The goal was to essentially build this out of those hackathons and um, give the improvers a taste of what it takes to um, take generative AI technologies as part of a bigger solution. If you don't know what a rack system is, it stands for retrieval augmented generation. I do have a presentation called Zero to RAG up on our improving page that you can go to find out more about it. But it's essentially is building your own knowledge management solutions. While, like I said, there's some that are already commoditized. Sometimes it's important and necessary to have your own. And as far as the rest of the training is concerned, we didn't just do training for our improvers. We also provided training for our co-pilot for our sales team that used that quite heavily as well. But I thought that was a nice highlight. So what does this mean on the impact? How did it impact us? Well, the executive and IT workshops conducted across North America generated near $36 million in sales opportunities year to date. Quite significant for a company our size. We've trained over 300 developers across AI hackathons, lunch and learns, and workshops. We've seen an increase of productivity of over 30% by the use of Copilot and other code generators. And improving Echo and Microsoft Copilot have reduced our average size from 4 hours to get an answer down just to a few seconds. So these are the kinds of impacts that we're talking about. And while some are disruptive and reduce your workforce, understandably so, I think the overall impact of embracing Gen AI is going to be a net positive. I am 100% confident about this. It's a matter of understanding where the focus should be. And going back on what Devlin said is you think about generative AI to handle the complexity while you focus on the difficulty. And this wraps up my presentation. Up next is our very own Sanat that will be talking about engineering scalable AI platform strategies for sustain and reuse. Be checking it out and register for his presentation. And this will conclude our Tomorrow Technology Today campaign. Thank you, everybody. And I guess we can open it up for Q&A if you have any sorts of questions. Daniel?
Absolutely. Thanks, Kevin. Let's give us some time for people to post any questions that they might have.
Sure.
Really appreciate what you had to say. I myself, I've been trying out Cursor in my own day to day, and it's been a game changer, changing how I do development myself.
And it still doesn't mean that you're going to blindly accept what Cursor does or any sort of generation. There's still that human in the loop that is important because some of the stuff that it outputs may or may not be correct. It'll get better over time, but in the meantime, the human in the loop is absolutely important.
Absolutely. Well, I'm not seeing any questions come in, so I want to thank everybody for joining us. Oh, I was wrong. We just got a question come in.
Okay.
It says, love the presentation. Here's my question. What training methodologies have proven most effective for educating non-technical employees on AI concepts, and how can we make this accessible?
Mm. So what I'm hearing is what training method have been used to um, get the most out of non-technical people to get them exposed to Gen AI technologies? Is that the question?
Sounds like it.
Okay. That's a great question. Um, this is where it goes back to the human touch and providing these webinar is great and it allows for a widespread um, uh, availability. But at the end of the day, if you don't get and sit in the same room, as simple as this is, and able to engage with them with a curriculum that is well thought out, um, this is where we saw the biggest success. Um, in the case of the AI hackathon, for instance, it was such incredible time to hear the light bulb goes off when you sit there in a room and explain them how you should engage with such and such technologies and what tools to use.
Okay.
It's simple. Is there may be some traveling that is involved. I'm not sure how remote you are and how what your configuration is for your organization, but being in the same room to me is has been the greatest success.
Thank you. It sounds like it's very comforting to hear that even though we're talking about AI, some of these solutions to adopt AI is going to be the human touch.
For sure.
That's going to be a people with people, and AI is not taking away our social interactions. We've got two more questions come in.
Great.
As a consulting company, how do you handle AI generation in combination with client NDA?
That's a great point. And this is going to be part of your policy, right? And so our policy is basically ensuring that whatever tools that we use is compliant with our NDA. And then we're going to ensure that the data that is proprietary to them isn't stored outside of the relationships that we have with our clients. So it's a open conversation that we have with clients, knowing that there are a level of IP that is already shared and fear that has been associated with cloud-based infrastructure because their IP started living outside of their walls. It's a similar conversation with these Gen AI tools as well. It's essentially the ability to store information in a different way, but let's ensure that our usage policy and how the data is handled doesn't break any sort of relationship and trust.
Okay. One more question. Can you briefly explain how improving Echo works compared to other Gen AIs? How is it different?
So I'll start on the difference. It was different because it was an immediate need compared to the tools that were commoditized at the time and didn't provide the value that we were looking for. So we needed that tool as early as possible to help our team out. Um, but basically, in essence, it's a retrieval mechanism to read large chunk of texts that are our case studies and all the successes that we've had at our clients, and we store that in a centralized place. We then take these texts, chunk them out, store them in a numerical form so that when you ask a question, it's a similarity comparison between the numerical version of your question and the large data sets that have been stored in a numerical database. So once that comparison is made, then you formulate an answer. this is the fundamentals of a retrieval augmented generation solution. And now you can find it in Microsoft Copilot. You can find it in Gemini, has it baked in. Amazon Q Business has it as well. So since then, you've had the large cloud service providers that have been providing such solutions, and then plenty more. There's a lot of startups that are focusing on that data generation. Glean is another one that I mentioned earlier. So be thinking if you're interested about which Gen AI technology to lean in, be thinking about RAG based Gen AI solutions. And there's a lot of them out there.
Thanks, Kevin. Here's another question. You mentioned many Gen AI tools, each with their own strengths, weaknesses, and capabilities. The Asker lists a whole bunch, OpenAI, Claude, Perplexity, so on and so forth. Each has their own subscription models. How does an organization or individual effectively choose and settle on one solution? Or are there aggregation options to simplify billing and reduce expenses?
It's a great question. At this point, the pricing model is probably being figured out. A lot of them are either consumption based, if you think of API based consumption, or they're based by user, and in which drive the cost quite significantly. And so then it's a matter of measuring um, who should benefit from it and who might not in the immediate if the cost is too expensive. I won't be speaking on your P&L, but at the end of the day, it's about how much investment you want to put into. As currently, I do not think that there are aggregators of subscription that a pricing model that are out there. I think it's all either consumption based or user driven.
Yeah, I haven't seen any aggregation either, so you got to find the ones that work for you, and you might start getting into a lock-in problem
Yep.
later on. That's what we saw in cloud services on the data on the platform engineering side of things.
That's a similar trend. I mean, you think of how the cloud grew at first, and the pricing models were kind of all over the place, and over time, it evolved. I think we're just at this entrance stage, and it may evolve into have a closer alignment with how different pricing models can help benefit the organization. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so exciting to be at the beginning of this curve,
Yep.
to
Same here.
watch mature and maybe watch our favorite one become the leader or maybe not. Who knows?
That'd be fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that wraps up the questions. I'm not seeing any more.
Fantastic. Well,
Uh,
thanks for hosting, Daniel, and thank you everybody for coming in and spending the time over lunch.
all
And
right. Well, before we wrap up, I
yep,
want to remind everyone to connect with Kevin on LinkedIn. He'd be more than happy to discuss this topic further or answer
yep,
any additional questions you might have. This Friday, 2 days from now, we will close out our Tomorrow Technology Today series, and I want to invite all of you to join us. And for this final talk, it's going to be titled "Engineering Scalable AI Platforms: Strategies for Sustain and Reuse." This is your last chance to dive deep into the latest advancements in enterprise-grade AI, so make sure to register now. You can register now or see our past talks at our improving.com/thoughts/webinars webpage. We've got a wealth of insights and inspiration waiting for you there. All right, thanks again for being here today. It's been an absolute pleasure sharing this journey with you. Now go forth and conquer the world of generative AI.